Every single day, individuals go about their lives, working, going to school, interacting with each other, and getting things done. Doing things that bring them joy, fulfillment, or progress in the greater scheme of life. Every single day, the actions of society contribute to the bigger picture of Earth. Whether it's transportation, function, or other services, somehow, our actions are tied to environmental impacts. Getting somewhere? Car, gas, fracking, using your phone, electricity, generation, burning fossil fuels. Internet, networking towers, construction, habitat destruction. Food, farming, production, pollution. All of this, along with the usage of resources and power in manufacturing and much more, contributes to environmental impact, adding to a scary vision of our planet. It may be common knowledge that these factors influence the Earth, but to really connect society's actions to the impacts they make, I decided to focus on how individuals impact their surrounding environment. To do this, I needed data and examples from everyday people who did typical activities in order to survey individual emissions and impacts. And who better than my own APES classmates? I got data from my table mates, Audrey, Kalani, and Elena, who so kindly let me into their lives. Today, we will be looking at some of their actions and finding out how they contribute to the environment. I had each person film things they were doing during the day over a week. My instructions were to film at least 5 to 10 seconds and send me a description of what they did, framing it as a day in your life. Tasks range from drawing, to doing homework, to traveling, and much, much more. What they didn't know is that I analyzed what they were doing, and through observation and inferences and research, I identified the potential environmental impacts that could come from their activities. The results proved to be pretty interesting. When looking at the data, I organized the activities into categories based on the services they provided: resources, energy, and transportation. These services intersect, and one action results in multiple uses of different categories, and I selected notable connections. Resource usage is most obvious when activities consume or utilize them as tools. Common examples are agriculture and the production or manufacturing of basically anything. These goods are used in various ways, such as Audrey, to make art. Depending on producers, paper can be very damaging to the environment through deforestation, habitat destruction, illegal harvesting, and social conflict. Unless plans are put in place to replace the loss of trees, paper production can be the leading cause of many organisms' extinctions, as well as global warming from the machinery used to deforest and make paper. Pencils are commonly made with graphite and wood. Similar to paper, the production of wood depends on the actions of producers. With lead, graphite is mixed with clay to create the core, both requiring mining, which causes damage to the environment through land destruction and toxic mineral runoff. However, since pencils are small and able to be mass-produced, factories, which also contribute to pollution, use less energy to make pencils. The materials are also biodegradable, which allows pencils to decompose without harming the environment. For many resources, waste is another concern. Littering can be found to be the most common issue, leading to ocean dumping and ecosystem disruption. Local neighborhoods usually have systems using different bins to separate waste into different categories: landfill, recyclables, and compost. Despite this, even when properly disposed of, landfills are the main recipients of resources due to the incorrect separation of waste, making it difficult to separate the waste later on in the landfill process. This results in potential contamination as well as undermines recycling efficiency and economy. Another prime resource is food. Demonstrated in Kalani's eggs, food is necessary for our survival and energy, but it also deeply contributes to the environment. In addition to the fact that we directly consume from environments, we create farms and ecosystems in order to obtain such resources, which impacts the planet's space and health. Depending on the type of egg farming, there are various environmental impacts. Cage farms, or concentrated animal feeding operations, produce efficient levels of eggs, but also create environmental pollution through animal waste and contamination. Cage-free provides a more humane method of livestock farming, with the animals naturally living in an environment, even though it may take longer. So depending on the source of your eggs, or food in general, you may have a different impact on animals and environment. Water usage is also common, as it is involved in functioning technology, an example being coolant for machines, as well as ordinary consumption. A pool uses large amounts of water, which is difficult to reverse. Pool water is usually drained from controlled waterways or evaporated into the atmosphere. However, it is easy for water to be spilled into local ecosystems. Most commonly, chlorine water absorbed in soil affects its nutrients since it's harder to break down and is toxic to plants. When in freshwater, the abundance of chlorine causes an algal bloom through the overgrowth of algae. The other alternative, saltwater pools, has fewer chemicals but still creates an imbalance in the ecosystem and degrades soil. Specifically, the YMCA pool that Elena uses chlorine. However, it is a community pool, meaning multiple people can enjoy the water, technically conserving more water than a personal pool. This is all in addition to the resources used to create all of our necessities, which, when considering how wide the service is, shows how much we already use from the environment. A large majority of my classmates' actions contributed to energy production, mainly due to the usage of electricity in everyday life. Most commonly, through technology, we use a constant amount of electricity, which is generated in various ways. In the US, electricity is mainly produced through fossil fuels, taking up 60% of electricity generation and leaving nuclear and renewable to produce less of the majority. Burning fossil fuels helps generate electricity in turbines. This process is more well known to be detrimental to the environment through emitting air pollution and running on limited resources that are extracted. However, specifically in Silicon Valley, we side with renewable energy. According to Silicon Valley Power, we primarily use clean energy sources such as wind, hydroelectric, solar, and geothermal, which either produce energy locally or are imported from across the western states. In addition, we invest in landfills for sources of methane gas to provide energy, which is a sustainable and efficient use of recycling. We also use natural gas, which, even though it is the cleanest fossil fuel, still emits carbon dioxide when burned and has to be extracted, which damages the environment from runoff and permanent land alteration. This produces massive amounts of electricity, which is then distributed around the area and used in large amounts. The average American household consumes 10,500 kilowatts hours per year, with air conditioning and heating being the main consumers. Additionally, technology, though using less electricity, requires charging. Studying on a Chromebook only uses about 0.02 kilowatts hours, which is pretty energy efficient. Outside of the house, a high-lumen digital auditorium including projection, lighting, and sound systems use up to 12 kilowatts per hour, meaning that when watching The Devil Wears Prada 2, a movie theater consumes about 24 kilowatts. Again, this can be beneficial since large numbers of people can enjoy a movie with high quality and reduce wasting energy. But it can also work the other way around if cinemas are still functioning despite having low audience numbers, therefore wasting energy. Another way to consume energy is through cleaning. Audrey washed her bedding, consuming about 2.3 kilowatt hours and 19 gallons of water for her washer, and about 4 kilowatt hours for drying. Other things to consider are light energy usage, which differs from the length that the lights are on, as well as the type of bulbs being used. All of these components and more run on electricity when used, and even on standby, which reveals our reliance on energy sources, which have significant impacts on the environment. And although Silicon Valley invests in less impactful methods of production, our consumption still damages the environment, playing a part in the greater practices of society. Transportation, though filmed the least, had the most impact within the singular actions taken. This is understandable since transportation can be seen as less of an activity and more as a transition between activities. The majority of this data came from Elena, who took a plane from San Jose to Los Angeles. An average plane flight from San Jose to Los Angeles is about 340 miles or 1 hour and 20 minutes. And an average Southwest plane fuel usage is 10.8 to 18.41 pounds per mile, depending on the plane size. Assuming that Elena took a medium flight size, she would be riding on a plane that used 10.8 pounds of gas per mile. So in total, 3,672 pounds of gas is burned for one plane ride. Wow. Fuel burned goes directly into the atmosphere and can contribute to global warming or acid rain, depending on the chemicals emitted. The thing is, according to their website, Southwest invests in sustainable aviation fuel, which uses non-fossil fuel sources in its fuel to result in lower greenhouse gases emissions. This still means that there are emissions being made, and not all of the planes have transitioned to such fuel plants, but it does significantly cut the carbon footprint of Southwest and those flying. On the way back, Elena drove. Cars are one of the highest contributors to atmospheric emissions due to their high usage and reliance on fuel. Typically, cars emit carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxides, which contributes to acid rain, smog, particulate matter, and volatile organic compounds, which cause health issues. Cars also produce other harmful impacts like noise pollution, which disrupts ecosystems, especially with the use of highways and other roads. All the transportation practices encourage more urbanization, which, on top of consuming land, increases the impervious surfaces that produce runoff. Specifically, for Elena's car, the average vehicle emits about 400 grams of CO2 per mile, meaning in her trip back to the Bay Area, Elena emitted 136,000 grams or 136 kilograms of CO2. Great job. In addition to submitting footage, I had each member take a survey by the Global Footprint Network that calculated based on their habits and living conditions their personal Earth overshoot day, when human consumption exceeds the time resources can regenerate, as well as how many Earths they would need if society performed similar actions to them. We also happened to take the survey at the beginning of our school year, and comparing some results showed a decrease in impactful behaviors, except for Elena. Obviously, there could be some inaccuracies in information, but for the most part, these are the average results of today's teenagers. It is important to note that I only analyze the actions that each person chose to send me, meaning that the information isn't accurate for someone's full footprint. I also only focus on specific components of their actions. This is only a fragment of their lives, and there are so many other factors that would contribute to their impact. But, even with that being said, what could each individual do to improve their environmental impact? To come up with solutions, I also participated in an experiment to observe my day-to-day life to see how much energy and resources I was using. However, since I knew the circumstances, I consciously made decisions to reduce energy consumption. Throughout the week, I did my best to reduce the unneeded use of energy and resources. The key thing is that I noticed even if I produced less of a footprint, my life was pretty boring and isolated. I didn't go anywhere, I stayed home, and I couldn't do that many things without consuming or using energy or resources. People should still live and enjoy their lives despite the consequences to the environment. This humanity versus survival outlook is a different conversation. Still, it should be agreed that, regardless of belief, improving the planet and making changes will allow for more wiggle room. No matter what we do, we really can't prevent emissions. It's too unrealistic to stop relying on these sources of service in our society and expect everyone to immediately adapt to such a dramatic shift. However, by just being aware of your impact and your actions, you have an opportunity to benefit yourself and others. Of course, it isn't horrible that individuals do these things, and shame shouldn't be used to motivate change, since there are so many other factors and individuals that influence someone's impact. But people should be aware of how their actions impact the larger picture, and have a feeling of responsibility to contribute to the environment, for that is what they and everyone lives in. And all of this isn't to say that there aren't things in everyday life that contribute positively. I haven't mentioned it, but my classmates also positively impacted the environment through things like clean transportation and non-emission activities. There are also already efforts to improve upon our existing systems, such as Southwest Fuel Plan. So what can people do? Although many of the actions made are either out of our control or necessary for our lives, change can be made simply through our awareness and simple decision making. There are various alternatives that, though small, can cut back your footprint. Save on resources by taking shorter showers, turning off water when you're not using it to save on water consumption and bills, recycling, or properly organizing your waste to prevent pollution in landfills. Reduce emissions and energy by carpooling, not using lights when the sun is out, or at least turning off the lights when you leave a room, even if you're coming back. Change can also look like encouraging these behaviors with others and supporting environmentally friendly practices in businesses. Social change is an important part of moving society forward and making a difference. Take it a step forward by advocating for social and environmental change, or voting and supporting politicians and policies that want to reduce the human footprint. Support by donating or volunteering for organizations such as the Nature Conservancy, the Arbor Day Organization, the Ocean Cleanup, Green America, and more that work to combat climate change, pollution, and various other environmental issues. Education is also key. Learning about industries and our contribution can go a long way, especially if it's shared and passed along to others. As seen in the change in our surveys, learning about the environment will make more people conscious of the decisions they make. May seem meaningless as one person, but setting an example and being persistent is key to fixing our footprint. The first step to change is through spreading awareness and knowledge to others, who then could make their own decision. Plus, knowing that you are aware of your impacts and power can feel good or rewarding when you know you're making an eco-friendly choice. So, when you're going through your day-to-day life, think about how you're playing your part in the greater picture, Mother Nature and planet Earth.
Turn off the lights. Turn off the water.
Recycle!
And to carpool or else climate change will get you.